next, I want to invite Amy Hertsenberg to the stage. She's our next speaker, and she's an industry expert that we're very excited for her to share some of her insights with you today. I'll introduce her a little bit while she's getting on. Hello, Amy.
Hi,
Amy,
how are you?
Wonderful. Thank you for joining us today. Amy has 8 years of professional experience, and she's successfully managed multi-million-dollar advertising campaigns on various social media platforms, delivering exceptional results for businesses worldwide. Her expertise lies in social media strategy, maximizing ROI, targeted audience segmentation, data-driven optimizations, and crafting compelling creative, which is not easy to do. Amy is passionate about leveraging social media advertising to drive brand growth and success. And we're very excited to have her here today. So Amy, I'll turn the time over to you.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me. I'm going to go ahead and get my screen pulled up so we can start sharing. And bear with me while I get this pulled up for y'all. Okay. Is everyone able to see this? I don't know if I can see both at the same time. So stop me if there's an issue. But like you said, my name is Amy Hertsenberg. Thank you guys so much for inviting me to talk on social media. Like you said, I've spent the last 8 years in this space and specializing in social kind of across the board. Currently, my specialty is in the paid social advertising space, but a huge part of my job is to really stay up to date on the social media landscape to make sure that I can make the best decision for my clients. So I have to know what's going on across all the platforms and really invest some time in making sure that if there are new features or new platforms or something that's popping up, social media changes on a daily basis. And so it's a constant to do on my list where I've constantly got to take a look at what's updated, what's new, what's going on. So I spend a lot of time in investing in what's going on in this landscape. So we're going to dive in today on what the current landscape looks like, how you all can learn more about it, utilize social media as a user and as a brand as well. So before we go into the landscape itself, I want to take a step back and give you a little bit of background on why social media is even a big power player in the first place. So there are tons of different digital marketing efforts that are available for brands and for educators to teach their students on, but why social media in the first place? And I've said this sentence probably a bajillion times in my career, but social media really has, you can reach anyone, anywhere, at any point in time with social media. And I pulled a couple of these numbers. They're from one of my favorite resources is eMarketer. If you're not familiar with that, they're like a research-based company that they put together a ton of research studies and they collect a lot of data. So they put out a lot of updated information on social media lately. And so these are some of the most updated numbers that they've released, where there are 4.7 billion users on social media today. And for context, that's 60% of the total Earth's population. Huge number of people who are using social media. And I think the next one is my favorite, where there is 92% of total internet users are using social media in some capacity. So almost every single person who's using the internet in some way, shape, or form is on social media. And people are spending about 2.5 hours a day on social media. I know I skew that number significantly because my job is social media. I'm spending basically all day on social media, all day, every day. But there's a scale here that is unmatched. I mean, 2.5 hours of time spent every single day on social media. If you think about the way advertisements are placed or the brand engagements and where the opportunities for brands to show up on social media, the number of impressions that are available to you is exponential. I mean, Facebook, I think it's every 4 posts on Facebook is either an ad or some sort of brand interaction. And then on Instagram, it's like every 5 posts. And on TikTok, it's about every 8 posts. And so there are multiple times per minute that a user on social media is getting hit with some sort of advertisement and or a brand interaction. So the number of impressions per day and the number of times someone is engaging with a brand on social media is in the thousands. So there is a scale and reach that is available on social media that is only growing. There are more users jumping on the platform, more platforms being created on a daily basis. Meta just launched one like last week. I think that was solely just to make Elon Musk mad, but they launched a whole new platform. And so it's a space that is growing over time, that in the scale really creates a powerful opportunity for both brands and educators and users. And I think the other side of things that a lot of people don't think about is social media apps have this like sneaky little thing called the audience network. I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with the audience network, but this is like a little creepy on the user side, but it's really valuable on the brand side, and a great piece of education to provide students who are learning in this space is that social media doesn't just stop at the apps. They have the audience networks, which are, it's basically these social platforms have connected to other apps, other websites, and other mobile places where their reach can go beyond their app. So I put in some charts here that I found helpful, but half the time that people are spending on some sort of digital platform or digitally connected opportunity is on their mobile devices. And about 89% of the time people are engaging on social, they're using it on their mobile device. But social platforms have basically connected, they have little pieces of code that they can send out to different places that makes them able to reach out beyond their own app. So for example, have you ever played a game like Candy Crush, for example, and an advertisement plays, it's like a video, they make you watch the whole thing before you get another life? More than likely, that's a social media ad. Or you're reading the news on a news app or something, and there's a advertisement or something in the middle of the article. More than likely, that's a social media ad. So they have developed these connections to these other places on mobile devices where they could potentially reach you, that expands the reach of social media beyond the actual apps themselves. And so it definitely is creepy, because I'm like, Facebook's following me. They kind of are, but it definitely makes social a very impactful tool for brands, because even if you are not a social media user, you can still be reached by social media. You don't have to have an account. You don't have to be on Instagram or use TikTok or any of these things. Social media can get to you, which is, again, is creepy, but it's true. So brands have a really strong opportunity, no matter if these people are on social or not. If they're connected to a mobile device, more than likely a social media platform like Meta or TikTok or Twitter or whatever can get to you and serve ads to you or engage with you in some way. And the last reason I think that social media is super important for brands and educators to really understand is that it is, like I said, a growing network. In the next 2 years, social network users are set to surpass the number of TV viewers. So we're already kind of neck and neck with TV viewers, but there are more platforms being launched, like I said, with Threads being up and TikTok's pretty new in the last like couple of years or so. But there are dozens of other platforms being developed on a daily basis. But not just that, there are more users jumping on. There are younger generations who are aging into using these platforms, or other generations who are now finally adopting these platforms. So the number of users on social is growing tremendously. And so the opportunity here is exponential, and it shows no signs of slowing down. So I think it's clear that this is going to continue to be a power player in digital marketing and opportunities for brands, and as educators, it's important to help our students understand where social media falls and how to navigate this space, because there are so many different options at our fingertips when it comes to social media, that I think schools have a really unique opportunity to kind of introduce students early on, so that when they go into the workforce, they have such a strong view of social and how to develop strategy and content, analyze the numbers, that they come out the gate with these strong digital marketing skills to really take whatever brand they're working with to the next level. I think I was in the very first social media classes back. Dr. Aggie was my professor back in the day. So she was my very first introduction into social media, and they introduced a minor in social media when I was in school. And it changed. I thought I was going to be in sports marketing. I thought I was going to work for a baseball team or something. And then social media really took over, and I fell in love with it. And that's why I'm here today. But when it boils down to it, social media, the scale and usage of it really makes it a super valuable tool. So you can reach anyone, anywhere at any given time. It reaches beyond the app. So within your phone and in mobile spaces, it can still reach you and you can still get your message out to users who aren't on the platforms. And these platforms are growing exponentially. So social media is going to continue to be a power player no matter what platforms are the best now. They might not be the best in 5 years from now, but there's going to be another one that'll be the best 5 years from now. It's going to continue to be an important part of curriculums and our strategies moving forward, that it definitely needs to be a space that students are learning and that brands are utilizing. So why social media? I think we nailed that part. But the second piece to this is I kind of want to talk through the evolution of social, because the original design of social media is a little different from the way it's kind of being used now. So it's really changed in the last few years. So this slide I was putting together, and it really blows me away that Facebook launched just 12 years ago. And it definitely wasn't the first social platform to kind of hit it. I mean, there were tons of other platforms before it. And even like people are like, well, there in 1997, this platform, I'm like, okay, well, in the last 12 years, it really is where we've set the stage for what social media has become today. Facebook launched back in 2004. And these platforms that I've listed here, this is not an all-encompassing list of social platforms, but these are the ones that have the biggest scale and are the ones that I recommend to people to start learning and growing on. As a brand, if you're taking on something with, you're developing a social strategy, or as educators, you want your students to learn, these are the places that I would recommend spending the majority of your time. But there are hundreds of social platforms out there. There are platforms that are specific to certain industries. I think the beauty industry, there are like hundreds of apps out there. I can't even remember what it's called, but I think it's called Flip or something like that. But it's an app that is just like TikTok, but it's solely beauty related and in the beauty industry. And it flips through different like beauty content. They have the products listed and it's influencers reviewing beauty content. So the last 12 years, though, these platforms are the ones that have really set the stage for what the social media landscape looks like today. But the platforms back in 2004 and even in the last couple of years don't look the same as they do today. We have since evolved from a focus on those individual connections or a focus on connecting in general to a real focus on discovery. If you think about the way social media was when we first signed up for a Facebook account, it was largely made up of individual connections. So you're going out there finding someone you know and requesting a friend to be their friend. And then brands got involved in the platform, and you can go and like a brand that you want to follow. And it's very much you initiating some sort of connection between you and another entity of some sort, whether it be another user or a brand. But that's just not the way social media is used anymore. We have moved away from delivering strong connected content to what they call unconnected content. So I'll give you a couple examples, but the connected content is the kind of the old way that social media was established, where you were really having to take some sort of action in order to get content. So you had to make a friend request or follow or like something in order to view their content and be able to engage with it. So there was some version of an action, and then your news feed was made up of content from people that you had made connections with, and only people or brands that you had made connections with. Outside of like advertisings or some other things that popped up, that was really the only type of content you were seeing. I can think back to the days where I was like, I like Subway, I like Penn Station, and all of a sudden my feed had Subway and Penn Station all over it. But today, new platforms have really kind of changed this, and TikTok is is kind of the best example of unconnected content. But there are several platforms nowadays that are more focused on the unconnected content, where these algorithms are set up to collect data on you and create a feed of content that you have never engaged with, but based on the data that they have collected, the algorithm really believes that you would like to engage with this content. So if you think about the way people are using TikTok nowadays, a large percentage of the time that they are spending on TikTok is spent engaging on the For You page. So it's a large percentage of content that is they've had no connection with, they've never seen it. It's a creator they don't know, it's a brand they've never heard of or have never engaged with. And then there might be a little bit of sprinkling of pages that they've liked before, people that they follow, but a large percentage of it is content that they have not ever connected with. And so this algorithm is developing a persona of you and serving you up content. And based on your engagement with that content, it's determining, okay, does she want to be on hair talk? Does she want to be on book talk? Does she want to talk about ADHD, or does she want to look at clothes all day? And it's developing a customized news feed for you that helps it deliver content that it believes is going to be the most connected to you. So it could be new creators and helping you find a new skill that you like, or for some reason I've landed on like funny cat video TikTok or funny dog video TikTok, where like my whole feed is like cats and dogs doing crazy stuff, which I personally love. But I have engaged with that content enough to where now the algorithm is serving me more and more of that, and I'm engaging more and more with that style of content. So it's really generating a custom news feed of content that I've never had to initiate any sort of connection with in order to receive that content. Other platforms are now starting to kind of take some learnings from TikTok. I think that a lot of these platforms are like, I've seen this meme of like Mark Zuckerberg like leaning over like he's peeking at someone else's test and taking a lot of learnings from these different platforms. So these are two screenshots from my personal news feeds on Facebook and Instagram, where they're suggesting content for me that they believe I would be interested in. No longer do I have to initiate that connection in order to get content, but it is now suggesting content for me. So it's learned from TikTok and the For You page, and they're developing spaces now on these platforms that are delivering you that unconnected content that it believes you would be interested in. So by and large, it's content that they believe you'd be educated by, inspired by, or entertained by. Like for some reason, my Facebook feed thinks I'm really into office memes, and I get them all the time. I think they're hilarious, but I have never watched The Office a day in my life. My husband has, but I have not. But the memes are still funny. But it's no longer about whether or not you're connected to a brand. They're serving you up this unconnected content in the hopes that you, one, will either engage with that content and or start to follow the page that they have suggested for you. So they're really taking a page out of TikTok's book. And a lot of these platforms have made these spaces for you to find and discover new content, and it's largely unconnected content. So like Facebook has their watch platform where you can go and watch videos, and a lot of times it's pages you've never heard of or you've never engaged with, but you can really go and discover content through there. Reels on both Facebook and Instagram are largely unconnected as well. Twitter Explore, Instagram Explore, the Pinterest home feed has always been a place of discovery, where now more often than not, you're looking at content that you've never seen before and that you're wanting to be inspired by, entertained by, or educated by. And so these algorithms have completely shifted. And the other interesting thing to me is that these platforms, while they're now serving you content that you can discover new things on, people are also using it as a place for discovery as well. This chart was super interesting to me while I was looking at stuff to put together this presentation, where most adults are looking for when they're looking for a product or something they're trying to search for, they either go to Amazon, Walmart, or TikTok, which is fascinating to me because TikTok is pretty new. It launched back in 2016, but it's become a trusted source of product recommendations. And so people are following influencers and engaging with different brands in the hopes of discovering something new. I didn't pick up that I was doing it last week, but I was putting together a meal plan for our family. I've got 2 kids. They're lovely pictures behind me, but it's so hard to put together a meal plan for them because I've got one really super picky kid and one kid that will eat just about anything you put in front of them. So I'm putting together thoughts, and I was scrolling through recipe recommendations on TikTok, and I made my whole meal plan through just looking at TikTok recommendations for recipes. And so it really has shifted my perspective to a place of discovery versus a place of just connecting with friends or connecting with family. So again, these are the platforms that, as educators or as brand managers, these are the places that I really recommend spending time to learn and spending time to educate yourself on. These are the platforms that aren't going anywhere anytime soon. These are the ones that have the most users and the most interactions and the most potential for a brand or an educator or a student to learn on. Threads is brand spanking new, but in the first 7 days of launching had over 100 million users sign up. It's got the potential to be at the size of TikTok in a matter of months. Like it has jumped, people have jumped on board pretty easily with this type of platform. I think people are loving the kind of Threads versus Twitter. And I do believe that there's still opportunities on Twitter, and there's lots of things that you can still do with those platforms. But these are the ones that I think have the strongest potential for brands, and the ones that I think that students would benefit from learning the most on. So I've put together some tips and tricks and tools that I'll walk through, coming from my perspective, and things that I think are important for students to learn, and as educators that you might want to spend some time on as well. I've pulled out some trends that I think are important. I also have a list of tools that I think would be worth investing some time on if you have the ability to do so. But I think the couple of things that I find super important are, first and foremost, TikTok. It is not a place that everyone loves to be on, but the popularity, especially with the younger generation, is going to continue to grow. This chart was fascinating to me. Again, I'm a sucker for eMarketer charts, hence the 97 charts I have listed in here. But you can see the drop off. I'm pointing at my screen like you guys can see what I'm doing. But the 18 to 24-year-olds are spending 45 minutes of time and higher over, and they're predicted to spend even more time on TikTok. And then there's a significant drop off when it goes to 25 and up. But as the younger generations continue to join platforms and join TikTok, they're going to spend time on a platform that has the most users and the most likely chance of engaging with them or entertaining them. And TikTok is ripe to be that top platform in the next few years. So it's going to be a major player, no matter if you like it or if you don't. And there's lots of talk about whether TikTok's going to go away. I don't think that would ever be a thing that actually happens. I think what I've heard rumors of, like, if there ever becomes a time where TikTok may or may not be banned, what would happen is TikTok would be sold to a US based company, or TikTok would be sold to someone in the US so that it can still function and still serve its purpose, but it would be US owned versus owned by China. So it is going to continue to be a major player in the social media game. So it is definitely worth spending time and investment on learning the platform. They have just scratched the surface of the advertising options that are available. There's creator options, and the things that they are doing on TikTok are fascinating. They're opening up some really great options for brands. There are some things that I can't mention because of their in beta programs and their NDAs and all of that, but there are new things that they're going to be coming out with in the next couple of months that I don't think any other social platform has done before, where there are new ad opportunities, and the way people are engaging with TikTok and the users and how much time they're spending on it. It is ripe opportunity for brands to really engage, but you've got to learn how to do it in a way that is going to actually engage with your audience. So TikTok is not necessarily a space where you can just post content like you can on Facebook and Instagram and then get engagements. It's a space where you have to actively pursue a connection with your users. So the brands that do TikTok really well are the ones like Duolingo is one of them. Duolingo and Scrub Daddy are two of my favorite brands on TikTok. Fair warning, Scrub Daddy is kind of inappropriate on TikTok, but it works for their audience. But it's a fascinating case study as a marketing professional to go and see how they've leaned into kind of what is going to attract the younger generation. And they have made some really strong connections on their TikTok platform. Duolingo is also really great. The one thing they do really well is they are actively engaged in the comment section of other users' videos. They post really great content on their feeds, but they also go out and pursue those connections in their comment section. So those are two brands that if you've got some time, go and take a look. And I would also say that if you've one of my favorite projects when I was in school was having Aggie would give us the task of like going and doing a case study on a brand and what they're doing on social media, and especially on TikTok. Some of the things that brands are doing on TikTok is just absolutely outrageous, and it was a really fun way to like exercise my brain and try to figure out why are they doing the things that they are doing, to kind of wrap my brain around what is the strategy around these TikTok brands. I have no idea why Scrub Daddy felt the need to be inappropriate on their TikTok, but they did, and it's working. My next step is a focus on video content. And you don't have to be a professional videographer. Your video content does not need to be highly produced, but video content is where you're going to see the most success on all social platforms, especially after TikTok's launch. The focus on video content was even greater. Instagram Reels was released, Facebook Reels, now they've got the Facebook Watch platform, and there are different ad placements for all of those as well. But the opportunity for video has exploded ever since the popularity of TikTok really took off. People are spending more time on social media engaging with video than they are any other style of content. And so video creation and editing skills, I think, are a really important piece of the puzzle for students to learn. Like I said, you don't have to be an expert. All you need is an iPhone and maybe a video editing app that you can get for free on your phone. And some of the content that in our business we've seen be the most successful are the content pieces that our team has created just from shooting it on their iPhones. We work with a brand here. It's a local restaurant called Gold Star. I'm not sure if any of you are familiar. And we do a lot of Instagram Reels and a lot of content, but almost every piece of content that we put out is shot on iPhone and edited by someone who's not a videographer. She wasn't even a graphic designer. She just had a really strong skill and an eye for design. And so we hired her as a content creator, and it's some of the top performing content that they've seen to date. And it's super strong, but it's this style of video content that shows authenticity and it really attracts users' attention. There's also a need to focus on storytelling. Content on social, there are so many pieces of content going on social media every single day. It is so important now more than ever to be able to tell a story that's compelling in a clear way, especially with this drive for unconnected content. If you've got a powerful story to tell and you put it out there on a brand's feed or even on your personal feed, and you allow it to go out to the masses, if it's a strong story, that algorithm is going to take that and make sure it gets out to the right people, even if they're not connected to you. So as you're developing storytelling pieces and trying to get your key messaging points or the reasons to believe out there for your brand, storytelling is just super important. So you want to make sure that you're telling a story that makes your brand stand out in a way. What makes your brand unique? What makes your brand mission important? What are there things that they're doing that you want your users to know? They're donating something, they're educating people over here, they're generating products that are sustainable. What are those story pieces that you want your audience to know that matter to them? And you want to be authentic in the way that you communicate those stories. I think there are a lot of brands that they have a really great story to tell, but they're not always great at telling the story because it comes off as like, we are so good, we're so great, you should work with us, you should buy from us, you should get our products. But really, when it boils down to it, people want to be inspired, they want to be educated, and they want to be entertained. And so if you're able to tell your story in a way that does any of those three things in an authentic way, and it's not pushing too hard, those pieces are going to be the ones that work the best for you on social media, because that's what people on social media are looking for. And I think you want to be clear in your offer to your audience. So you want to be clear, like if you are a company that sells sustainable products, you want to feature that story and be clear on that, but it doesn't have to be salesy at the same time. Social media is not just about selling. It's a real upper funnel tactic, but you want to tell them all these stories and give them a reason to believe in your brand. So tell those stories while inspiring them, educating them, or entertaining them. Influencers. This is always a scary topic for people who aren't in the space every single day because they've heard horror stories about this six-figure influencer deal over here, or somebody used a mascara and put on eyelashes over there and it's not gone well. But one of the biggest trends that's going to be that it is happening now and will continue to be a trend in the future is the popularity of micro or nano influencers. And it's really, I've seen this come to life a lot on TikTok, and it's translated to other platforms, but people are much more likely to trust a influencer that has a smaller audience. They've followed this person because they have similar interests in them. They have a powerful story that they're telling and they're engaged with them before. But these smaller follower accounts tend to be more authentic than these big giant influencers that have millions of followers. There have been so many stories, especially as of late, and there's the exposure that's happened on TikTok where an influencer does something and they don't actually use this product, and then it gets blown up on TikTok. There's a distrust in our everyday social media users to large social media influencers because they know they're getting paid a large sum of money to post about a brand and to say what the brand wants them to say. And so there's more trust in these smaller follower accounts, nano and micro influencers. And so I encourage you guys to really invest some time in looking at how brands are using these smaller communities to have a much bigger impact on their audience. Then I think there are some really key skills that are important for people who are interested in doing social media as a profession. I will say that you don't have to be an expert in all of these things, but I think it's important to highlight some of these things because knowing enough about each of these topics, and there's probably dozens of other topics I could have added to this slide that are hugely beneficial as a person in social media, to being able to communicate with my team, to understand what's going on, to diagnose problems, to communicate performance, but really graphic design skills or being able to create a quick graphic or take a good photo or make a video on my phone is hugely helpful. And that's a skill as somebody in social media, I would encourage you to at least try. It doesn't necessarily have to be the skill that you want to pursue as a career, but knowing enough to know that this over here, the size is wrong for Facebook posts. It needs to be look this way if it's going to be on TikTok so that you can communicate with other people on your team. I think it's a great opportunity for students to learn when they are going through classes or they're putting up their course schedule or something along those lines. If they're interested in social media as a career, if there's opportunity for them to take even an intro class in some of these spaces, that would benefit them so much in the long run. My career has taken many twists and turns over the years, and so I've done each of these in a career at some point in the last 8 years. And because I know enough about each of these topics to talk confidently, it has made me a really valuable tool to the businesses I work with. I can go and help install a pixel, which is like a piece of code that comes from social media that I put on our website to help push data back and forth so I can report on ad campaigns. Or if needed, I can jump in and make a quick graphic. I can edit a video. I can develop a strategy. I can analyze our campaigns or our organic presence and talk confidently about how they're performing. I can help us set up our accounts on Facebook Business Manager and TikTok Business Manager. But there are tons of other skills in this, but these are the ones that I think are the most important for somebody who's younger who wants to do social media as a professional. These are the places that I would lean into, at least taking a class on or investing some time to at least learn the basics on. And this is just a quick slide I put together of some of my favorite tools. And I tried to bucket them out as best as I could on like where you can learn to gain more knowledge, as far as like eMarketer is really great on like stats and statistics about social media, or even industries as a whole, where like if there's a trend in the beauty industry to talk about mascara right now, they're the ones that are going to know that. There are also tons of resources like Facebook Blueprint, where they teach you a lot about how Facebook works. And there's all platforms have some version of an academy where you can go and learn. And I will say it's a really cool opportunity for educators because they've already done the coursework for you. And so is a great opportunity to take some of the things that the platforms themselves are saying to use in coursework to help your students understand what is the best way to understand these platforms. And almost all of them have some sort of certification program as well. And those are valuable. I think that they are a great, I think some of them even have like a student discount if they are paid. I think Facebook's the only one that's paid. But all these rest of these tools I've used in my past that I think are super helpful. So I think you guys get a copy of this presentation, so I won't go through all of them, but they are linked in this presentation, so they'll take you right to the platforms themselves. So I think that's all I had for you guys. I kind of talked fast, so I'm not entirely sure how I'm doing on time, but I wanted to open it up for questions.
Amy, thank you so much. Great insights. Yeah, we've been putting down a bunch of questions. The chat has been exploding, so thank you for everybody's comments and for your insights, Amy. Let's start with the question. There's maybe like 3 questions that are on a similar topic. So we'll do phase 1, which is what's your recommendation for how to determine which platforms are going to give you the best bang for your buck?
So there's it's a little tricky because it depends on who your audience is and what you're trying to accomplish. So I'd say if you're really using social to kind of get your brand out there and you're focused on reaching a younger audience, TikTok's probably your best bet. But if your audience is generally a little bit older, maybe Gen X, I don't even know what they're all called, but a little older generations, Facebook and Instagram still have really strong users, and people are still engaging on those platforms. And really, they are still being engaged with on a frequent basis. That I think if your audience leans a little bit older, those are the places that I would recommend starting. I think it's also a test and learn, because there are definitely older generations that are super engaged on TikTok. There's like industries like Book Talk, where they have created this like massive book club on TikTok that is like, there's hundreds of millions of people who are talking about books nonstop on TikTok. And that, if you are an author and you're trying to engage in an audience, that's where you should go. I think there's definitely differences in the platforms based on age, but really look at your industry and if there's a place that there's already an audience or community set up. But I will say, like, Facebook and Instagram, as much as people say they're dying, they are not. The ad platforms are still working. People are still engaging. They're adding in new features every single day. And so if you're looking for a simple way to start your platform, regardless of who your audience is, if you don't have enough time to spend on building a TikTok presence and making those videos all the time, Facebook and Instagram are always my starter points, especially for smaller businesses, for sure.
Great. Yeah, thanks for that. I think starting with the end in mind and knowing who your target audience is always going to be the answer. So I love that.
Absolutely.
Part 2 of this theme is from a company standpoint, do they need to be on all platforms, have a presence on everything, or do they just focus on 1 or 2 where they know their target audience is?
I always say if you know you can do one platform and you could do one platform really, really well, start there. If you start with all platforms, I highly doubt you're going to have time to do every single platform extremely well. I think especially if you're new to social media and you're just now getting started and trying to figure out how it works into your own schedule with all the other work that you're trying to do, start with one and then grow into the other ones. It's going to be really hard to do every single platform really well all at the same time. So start with one, pick whichever one is the most familiar to you and it does have your audience on that you can really grow and learn into. And then as you get, like, you're feeling comfortable, it's taking less time to manage that platform, it's taking less time to get engagements on it, you've kind of found the content that's worked well, great. Now let's move to the next one and add a next one on your plate.
Great, thank you. Okay, then maybe part 3 of this question is threads. There's new accounts coming out. How do you determine when is the right time for your brand to move onto a new platform? You don't want to miss out on some of the early adoption, but you also don't want to waste your time if it's just a fad. So how do you kind of balance that?
I think it really boils down to, do you have time to invest in it? Because if the people who have enough time to invest in it and do it well, to test and learn what works for their brand, are going to be the ones who get the most out of it. It's the tried and true that you're going to get out of it what you put into it. So if you've got enough time to spend in your workday to spend and understand the platform, what works for you, developing that audience, absolutely jump in now. But if you're still if you're working on Facebook and Instagram, you don't have a ton of time to invest in it, maybe now's not the best time for you. Like you said in the last question, maybe you still need to nail down the last two platforms before you jump into something new. I think Threads is so interesting to me because it's like Twitter, but it's not Twitter. It's much more positive. It's definitely a space that is so curious to a lot of brands, but it really boils down to if you've got the time to do it. If you have the time and you're willing to invest in some creative and some of those things that you need to do to find what works best for your business, then absolutely jump in.
Thank you. That's a good answer. Okay, changing topics a little bit. So KPIs and reporting for social, obviously there's lots of different metrics that we could be tracking. You shared some helpful tools, so thank you for that. In looking at metrics and looking at unconnected content, like follower counts, you were talking about like the trust factor of big influencers versus nano influencers. What's your advice for brands to be focusing on in terms of KPIs? What are the most impactful ones? And how can they get those?
So I would say it depends on what type of content you're looking at. So if you're doing ads, obviously there's a whole slew of other KPIs you can look at based on what you're trying to accomplish. But when it comes to just like posting content on the organic side of things, I think there are two things that I really look at. One is impressions. How many people or how many times was this content even seen, especially in the world of unconnected content? If the algorithm believes that that content is quality, it's going to help you reach more people and get more impressions for you. And so if those impressions are strong, then you're going to see lift in your content because the algorithm is pushing that for you. But I'd also look at engagement rate, which is like the number of engagements, where there be likes, comments, shares, video views, divided by the number of impressions. So out of the people who are seeing your content, how many of them are like it enough to actually take some form of action? And that is a good indication that you are putting out the right style of content to either inspire, engage, or educate, or inspire. What was the other one? I'm missing it now. I've said it too many times at this point. But it's a good indicator that you're doing something right with your content. So you want to look at the number of engagements you've had. And let's say every industry's got a different, like what we would call a benchmark, where like you want to engage at least you want your engagement rate to be about 2%. I'm making up that number. Some industries are around that part. Some of them are higher, some of them are lower. Like B2B content is going to be way lower. But some like beauty style content has a really strong engagement rate, which might be like 5%. So you want to be able to look at the number of engagements divided by the number of people who are seeing it. And if it's super low, maybe the style of content you've got out there is, yeah, it's worth watching, but no one's taking any action off of it. Maybe you revamp it a little bit, try something else, or asking for an engagement, tweak it in a little way to potentially get stronger actions taken off of those. So those are the two pieces that I'd focus on.
Great. Thank you for those recommendations. This has been a fun little case study of student success with Dr. Aggie, hearing first from the professor and now hearing from you, Amy, the student.
Yeah.
And now you're becoming a teacher. So thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today. Really appreciate for your time. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Perfect. We also want to remind everybody that 𝐤𝐭𝐮 has a social media marketing courseware and simternship. It is the most up-to-date and current social media courseware that's available. So go ahead and check that out. And once again, you can get a free t-shirt if you sign up for a demo by next week. So we encourage you to do that.